began this Galf, as we call it, the Goa Art and Literary Festival, founded 9 years ago. And the first time that I came here, I'd come from Bombay then, and it was just a small group of 6 or 7 people who decided that let's have an art and literary festival. And we never thought anything would come out of it. But year by year, it's grown from strength to strength. And every year I wonder, oh my goodness, how are they going to manage it? Why? Because it is run by volunteers. Goa Writers is a group of small writers. Some of them are very well known. Bhai Mozo, who will be speaking to us in a while, is one of them. And some of them are struggling, budding writers, but all of them are dedicated to literature or art.
On behalf of the International Centre Goa, it is my pleasure to welcome you all to the 9th edition of the Goa Arts and Literature Festival, or Galf. The festival is organized by ICG, that is the International Centre Goa, in association with Goa Writers, and except for the inaugural held at the ICG campus in Donapala. A few days ago, during a press conference held at ICG, a somewhat curious question popped up. Why does Goa need to host an arts and literature festival when there are now countless literature festivals held across the country all through the year? There are many reasonable answers to the question, but let me repeat what I said then in not so many words. Goa is, and we can disagree and argue about that, a tiny marginal state far away from New Delhi and the heartland. It is a state largely known for tourism. Almost everything else about Goa remains unknown in most parts of the country. As a result, nearly everything that happens in Goa stays in Goa, and only occasionally news about Goa and its residents, what they do, reaches Mumbai and beyond. This matters, and it is important we understand that a large majority of Goa's emerging writers, poets, artists, musicians and others are disconnected from and largely unknown to the rest of India. And this is precisely one of the reasons why Galf is terrifically important. What Galf does, among other things, is provide the necessary space for Goans to be able to showcase their contributions to the world of arts and literature. A space that is not easily or necessarily available everywhere elsewhere. In all fairness, perhaps, some other festivals too provide space and opportunity to local talent. But the larger point is that the availability of the space is especially important for those in small states like Goa or those others which lie at the margins, whether geographically or in our collective imagination. On behalf of ICG, I would like to thank our festival partners, Goa Writers, and Director of Art and Culture, Government of Goa. Thank you, Mr. Viraj Nayak, for preparing the official Galf 2018 artwork. Thanks are due to all our sponsors, donors, hospitality partners, media partners, and volunteers, without whom this festival would not be possible.
भारताचे श्रेष्ठ अशी आणि ज्येष्ठ साहित्यकार शशी देशपांडे आमचे मदीं गोंयचे भूषण जाल्ले मुली येता अशे तरणाटे लेखक आता ते तरणाटे आसात काय नाही आमी सांगपाचें भगवानेस जरी पिंटो इंटरनॅशनल सेंटरचे निर्देशक भगवानेस डॉक्टर पुष्कर म्हजे इश्ट आनी चित्रकार विराज नाईक म्हणजे मुखार बशिल्ले मानेस्त सोयरे आनी म्हज्या गोंयकार मोगा माये मोगाच्या गोंयकार भावानो आनी भयणीनो I think it would be in proper perspective if I start by working my own mother tongue in the language of this soil. हांव कोंकणींतल्यानूच पयलीं थोडी उतरां उलयतलों. इश्टानो, गोंय कला आनी साहित्य महोत्सवाचें हें 9वें अधिवेशन. जेन्ना नवरात्री जातात तेन्ना 9 रातींच्या 9 माळी उपरांत दसरो येता. हें गाल्फाचें 9वें अधिवेशन. 9 माळी जाली उपरांत फुडल्या वर्सा आमी दसऱ्या भशेनच 10वें जें अधिवेशन आसा तें व्हड प्रमाणार एक वेगळे तरेन आनी सर्वसमावेशक अशे पद्दतीन करपाचो चड सर्वसमावेशक करपाचें विचार आमचो आसा. आयचो खरें म्हळ्यार खुशी मनोवपाचो दीस, पण शिवाय एक याद जी म्हणजे मनाक दुखिस्त करता ती सांगली बघा रावूं नजर. दर वर्सा गाल्फाचें अधिवेशन न चुकता हाजीर रावपी आमचे मदलो एक म्हारगडो कवी रमेश वेळुस्कार हालींच सामको हालीं आमचे मदल्यान उठून गेलो. खरं म्हणजे आम्ही थारायलें की अंदूच्या ह्या अधिवेशनाच्या उक्तावण सुवाळ्यात जो भोवमानाचो काव्यवाचनाचो सुवाळो जाता ताका रमेश वेळुस्कराक आमंत्रीत करचें अशें आमचें थारिल्लें, पूण दुर्दैवान ती संद आमकां मेळ्ळी ना. तो अचानक आमचे मदल्यान उठून गेल्ल्यान पूण ताची याद काडले फावट रावं नजो हें पयलें. दुसरी गजाल म्हाका गोंयकार भावा खातीरच सांगपाक जाय. फाटल्या सप्तकांत हांव अरुणाचल प्रदेशांत अरुणाचल लिट फेस्ट अटेंड करपाक गेलो. चड दीस जालनात, 5-6 दीस जाले. ते फेस्ट सरकारी पावण्यार तांणी मनयलें. कितले लाख म्हणना कितले करोड मोडले सरकाराच्या पदांतल्यान तें म्हाका खबर ना, तें हांव सांगचो ना. पूण गोंयांत जें गोंय ट्युरिस्ट मॅपाचेर घालपा खातीर आमचें सरकार वावुरता तें गोंयांत आमकां घालपा खातीर सरकार कांय दिना म्हणना हांव, तशें म्हणल्यार बरोबर जावचें ना. पूण जितलें जावपाक जाय त्या प्रमाणान दिवप जायना. आनी हाका लागून एक खंत भोगता की आमकां ट्युरिस्ट मॅपाचेर ट्युरिस्टां खातीर कितलेंय खर्च करपाक तयार आसा, पूण कला आनी संस्कृतीच्या नांवान खर्च करपाक सरकार सदांच फाटीं पळयता. म्हाका जाल्यार दिसता गोंयकारांनीच आवाज काडले बगत हें काम फुडें वचचें ना. हांव आमचे गोंयांत साहित्य संमेलन जातात, कोंकणी साहित्य संमेलन, मराठी साहित्य संमेलन जातात. पूण हें जें साहित्य संमेलन हें आगळे तरेचें साहित्य संमेलन. ज्या संमेलनात कोंकणी साहित्य, मराठी साहित्य, पुर्तुगीज साहित्य, गोंयचें जें साहित्य आसा तें गोंया सयत आमी एका आंतरराष्ट्रीय मॅपार दवरतात आनी तें खूब गरजेचें काम आसा. अशे वेळार सरकारा कडच्यान आमी चड अपेक्षा बाळगोवप हें सवाल आनी त्या सरकारा कडेन हो आवाज पावचो अशें म्हाका दिसता. हांव जाणा सरकारांत अशेय लोक आसात जे साहित्याचे मोग आसात, आमच्या हातूंत हाजिरी आसात, पूण तरी हो आवाज तांचे मेरेन पावचो ह्या खातीर हांव चड करून हें इतलें तुमकां सांगूंक सोदतां. You have noticed that we have shortened our festival by a day this year for the first time. Yet I can promise you it is a star-studded edition. We have amidst us literary giants like Shashi Deshpande and Shanta Gokhale, veterans like Ram Guha and Edwin Thambu, tall men of letters like Sudhir Kakar and Harish Trivedi, stalwarts from publishing industry Mini Krishnan and Kannan Sundaram, poets that are loved all over India and abroad like Mustansir Dalvi and Arundhati Subramaniam. To deliver the Babasaheb Ambedkar Memorial Lectures we have Kancha Ilaya and Martin Makwan. Please don't miss them. We have fashion designer among those who have, we have fashion designer turned writer Wendell Rodriguez and scientist turned novelist Mangala Anvekar. Also among those who traveled all the way from the US and Australia, our own prize writers Victor Rangel Ribeiro and Sunita Pirish da Costa, and many of those whom we would love to have as regulars like Samar Hankar and Naresh Fernandez, Antarati Hussain and Vinta Amalya. Friends, well, there is none here whose name is less important, but I'm afraid if I take the name, continue to take the names, my time given to me will be over. This is the first time that we have joined hands with Publishing Next, pioneered by Leonardo Fernandez, to host 2 sessions. And those who are in the publishing industry, we know the importance of this Publishing Next. Ever since 2010, the participants of Goa Art and Literature Festival has made Goa proud. You very well know that Goa is an expression of beauty of nature. It is an expression of art in all forms, whether dance, music, literature, theatre, even cuisine. Goa expresses the exemplary harmony and coexistence through samatha and ekata, an expression of equality and solidarity. Goa is an expression of openness, liberality, and freedom. Well, these days, when freedom comes with a rider, we are happy that we have writers in this August gathering like Perumal Murugan, who have faced the hazards of telling the truth. At Galf, we believe in raising our bar, raising our work, not our voice. As Rumi, the 13th century Persian poet says, it is the rain that grows flowers, not thunders.
She's a novelist, she's been a short story writer, she translates from Kannada and Marathi into English, and she's really, really so creative. Mrs. Deshpande will now speak to you on the topic Not So Equal.
I'm very happy to be here, and before I forget it, I must say I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me. Generally, I keep it to the end and then I forget, so let me say it right away. I'm truly thankful to them. And I'm also very glad that they have Jerry Pinto and me as a keynote speaker, because I think I have so many years behind me and he has so many years ahead of him that between us we are going to cover a large span of time. And I think that's going to be good for you, all of you. So let me start. What I'm going to say is something which has been said, and will continue to be said for some more time until the need for it is over. And I did wonder whether I should speak of this at all, because we are going to get tired of it in the next coming year. But some things need to be said again and again and again. And therefore, I thought I will talk about this. Many years back, decades back, when I was a law student, we had to study the Constitution of India. The Constitution was very new then, it was in its infancy, and I think as students we did not know the power of the document we were studying. We did not know what a wonderful new thing it was for our country. We just studied it like students study any subject. And the fundamental rights for us were just an important chapter to study. We never knew what the fundamental rights really meant to people when it applied to their lives. It was much later during the emergency that I think all of us realized, all of us who were then born, alive and thinking, knew what the fundamental rights really meant to every citizen in this country. Today, I look at the rights differently, perhaps hopefully with a greater understanding. Article 14, which promises all citizens equality before the law, seems remarkable when I think of what it meant to a people who had been second-class citizens in their own country for centuries ruled by a foreign power. What it meant to a people who lived in a very rigidly hierarchical society in which people could never even hope to be equal. Something over that is still with us. But before I talk of the right to equality, I will go back for a moment to an earlier and a personal story. Many years ago, I was in Cambridge for a seminar on British literature. There were 5 of us from the subcontinent at that seminar, 3 Indians, 1 Pakistani, and 1 Bangladeshi. During a casual conversation, one of these 2 said to us Indians, "We envy you. You can stand in the middle of the street and criticize your Prime Minister." The other heartily concurred. I imagine we patted ourselves on the back for being a mature democracy. We had the splendid example of the time when Indira Gandhi had attempted to subvert democracy and had been voted out of power. And the motley collection of parties and individuals who had formed a government after that had been voted out as well when it was realized that they were totally unfit to govern. We felt very good about ourselves. What made us feel even better was that we were not like our neighbors across the border. In fact, it gave us great pleasure to be envied by them and to define ourselves as not Pakistanis. That was a very important thing to feel at that time. Then recently, I read an interview with Muhammad Hanif, the Pakistani writer, who writes so critically and courageously about the sad state of affairs in his country. During the course of the interview, the Indian journalist interviewing him referred to a poem written by a Pakistani poet, Hamida Riaz, who sadly passed away just a few days back. The journalist quoted a line from her poem, "Tum bilkul hum jaise nikle." Muhammad Hanif's response was, "How different could we be? We drink the same water, eat pretty much the same food, we breathe the same air." And finally he added, "It's horrendous here, it's horrendous there." There meaning India. It hurt me to read this. It shocked me. However bad things were in our country, how could anyone say we had become a Pakistan? We had our courts, which were sentinels of democracy. We had a very vital and alive press. But from Muhammad Hanif's words and Hamida Riaz's poem were couched in tones of such regret that I thought we needed to take a long and hard look at our own country. What I saw was not very reassuring. In fact, it filled me with dismay. After the 2014 elections gave the BJP a clear and strong mandate for which many of us were thankful because we were tired of corruption and coalitions and hoped to settle down to a sensible governing to the progress that had been promised. We were sadly disillusioned. We had just entered the era of mobs. Mobs came out of nowhere, it seemed. Mobs who indulged in lynching, in barbaric killings in the name of the holy cow, who turned into moral policemen in the name of our culture. Mobs who attacked people in the name of patriotism and nationalism, who imposed a kind of unofficial censorship so that they decided whether a book, a film, a play, a painting exhibition, or a musical performance was fit to enter the public domain. These mobs seemed to have some kind of a patronage, for they were very rarely punished for their crimes. And on an official level, there has been, apart from a clamping down on dissent and interference with institutions, a rewriting of history, an attempt to create a narrative of the past in tune with the ideology and desires of the ruling party. Now, with elections approaching, we are back to vote banks and voter appeasement, which have always been the name of the game of politics in India. But the promises being made now of a quick resolution of the Ram Janmabhoomi issue in favor of Hindus of course, the construction of a Ram Mandir, of a great statue of Sri Ram in Ayodhya, making it a symbol for the entire country, makes it clear that Hindutva, which was torn down in the 2014 elections in favor of development and progress, is to be a major issue in the coming elections. Sadly, the Congress has jumped on the bandwagon, hoping perhaps for more Hindu votes. But hopefully, the Congress is just using it as an election strategy and will forget about it if they come into power. But for the ruling party of today, these slogans are in pursuance of the conversion of India into Bharat, a Hindu Rashtra. Something very hard to approve of for someone of my generation. We who accepted the mantra in which Pandit Nehru believed lay the magic of India, unity in diversity. Just now we were listening to Damodar also speaking in Konkani, switching over to English, and then we were told of the various scripts in which the Konkani is written. I mean, this diversity is an amazing thing about India, I think.
Our next speaker is Jerry Pinto, novelist, translator, award-winning author of Goan Origin. And a little bird has told me he has also nurtured a generation of mathematicians.
Yeah, just thanks everybody and thanks. And it's so wonderful to have you all sitting here, a full hall. In Bombay it would have been like 10 people and me, and 5 people I would have brought along. Words are what I do. I have lived by their promise for the majority of my working life. Like so many writers, I began as a reader. And as a reader, words seemed transparent. They had something to say, and I was reading them, and the world was beginning to take on a new color and a new texture. My experiences, I felt, had a new depth and a new richness thanks to my reading. To me, words were then our allies, our willing allies in the process by which we civilized the world around us, one word at a time, one naming at a time. Of course, this was the pre-lapsarian phase of innocence. And it seems sometimes that one can only use the word innocence if one is going to speak in the very next sentence of a fall from innocence. I don't know when this happens, when you begin to realize that you have placed your faith in the intangible and the volatile. Was it the moment when you thought you knew what a word meant and you found that it meant something quite different when you looked it up? Is it the moment when you begin to realize that a poem that you had parsed in one particular way, you were told by a teacher, meant something completely different and she had to be correct because she was a teacher? Or when you read that the poet meant something else? There is a moment when words begin what will be a lifelong cycle of betrayals and seductions, fresh seductions each time. Perhaps it actually begins when you begin to communicate and you find that words are not transparent but translucent. They refract your meaning because as soon as they pass from you, they are received. And the story of their reception is the story of the receiver in toto. No one receives a word, but she has a history to bring to bear on that word. For everyone who has worked in words, there is a perfect receiver. The perfect receiver is someone who will see exactly what we mean. There is never any misunderstanding because the perfect receiver can do everything that we cannot do. She will imagine the characters in the way we imagine them. She will hear their voices in her head as we heard their voices in ours. She will put in missing colors and shade in backgrounds with the exact emotional tonality that existed when we were inventing those moments.
Reading a small sentence from William Shakespeare's Henry VI, I'll call for my pen and ink and write my mind. We now go on to the unveiling of an artwork by Viraj Vasant Naik. He has been in association with the Tellus Art Sweden, Kalakriti Art Gallery, Hyderabad. From here I can see some of the details. Those of you who are sitting far away and at the back.
I don't have too many words to say about the work of art because the process is a continuous process for an artist. And in this particular work, I've tried to put a little bit of a cutout and the craft which I did in the school days. And basically I like to find the grotesque images and expressions and emotions of the human beings. And that is what I've tried to depict here. So I don't think that I have much things to talk about my art in a very large way. But this is what I would like you all to look at it and have your own interpretations. And you can write about it in your books. Thank you very much.
May I now invite Sumana Roy for poetry reading. Sumana is from Siliguri.
I passed through daughterhood like a young goat crossing a highway. One wrong step and I could be dead. Men, Baba said, were automobiles, lust and accident. My body, rush hour traffic. Before school hour, I sat like a sparrow on a cow horn, destiny's bisexual perch, waiting for a companion with whom I could take flight. For that is the moral of sparrow life. 1 for sorrow, 2 for joy, 3 for letter, 4 for boy. Walk in groups, always. Akla cholore is for men alone. Sometimes I am chicken. My legs, swollen from captivity, a delicacy. I am a kilometer virgin, never having tested the speed of my soul. In neighbors' curries, my feet cast no shadow. I am a good girl, nutritious when stewed. All my life, I've always been meat, goat, sparrow, poultry. My tongue eaten raw like a bull's, my fingers giving a vegetable its name. My body chopped into pieces for temple retail, Puri, Kamakhya, franchises of barbecue religion, Ma Shakti, Shakti Peeth to Shakti Mills.
A dance performance by Impana Kulkarni. Impana Kulkarni, what a musical name. She's a Bharatanatyam artist and a teacher based in Goa.
The surveyor and map maker Michael Spender, yes, he is the brother of the poet Stephen Spender, and the bubbling Adda held at the home in Calcutta of the Bengali poet named Sudhindatta. So congratulations on yet another masterful book, and to begin with, perhaps you can read a section that gives us a flavor of the book.
The Adda was a Calcutta institution. It generally took place at a settled rendezvous at a fixed time. This might be a veranda, a rooftop, an office, or a street corner tea stall. Adda participants could be unemployed graduates or middle-class men with bookish interests. Women and children were scarce. In its purest sense, the Adda was an ongoing conversation among strong and aspiring personalities. Bengalis were less apt to converse than declaim, even on such abstruse subjects as the best bus to take to Beliagata. Ask a Bengali a question and you will get an oration, one Calcutta denizen noted. He sees all the world as a stage on which he is the star role, and even an audience of one is a full house for him. As he gets into his stride, you can see him becoming mesmerized by the stirring cadences of his own eloquence. At the center of the Adda was the Addadari, the sun around which all members orbited. For the Pariche Adda, Sudindranath Datta was that sun. In its first year, the Adda was held in the Light of Asia Insurance Company, where Sudin worked as a clerk. In its second, it moved to student study. On the upper floors of Hadipagan, one sat on mattresses covered with sheets. But by the time the Adda arrived in the large reception hall in Sudin's joint family Hadenbaden's ground floor, the hall was furnished in the manner of a London or Paris salon. Two enormous bookshelves that went all the way to the ceiling faced off each other at each end. Eliot Joyce and Pound were shelved alongside the Romantics, Victorian doorstoppers, French, German, and Russian writers and philosophers, Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, but also Bankim Chatterjee, Michael Madhusudan, Ram Mohan Roy, and of course Rabindranath Tagore. A lamp of frosted glass hung in the ceiling center, reflecting light off the speckled green marble floors. Waist-high wainscoting added to the atmosphere of intellectual gravity. When the Adda was in session, Sudin's nephews and nieces were under strict instructions to be quiet, with the reward of leftover sweets if they were good. Anyone was welcome to attend Adda, even an Englishman whom Sudin suspected was a special branch police informer was admitted, though he rarely contributed anything as he was too busy trying to keep track of who was saying what. At ease on any number of topics, Sudin tended to progress dialectically from an alternately to a therefore, and then on the cusp of a conclusion, swerve to a yet. He would consider each question carefully, holding it up to the light so that he might look at it from every possible angle. He then presented his conclusions with unassailable confidence. The more aggressive nationalists of the Adda grumbled that Sudin's spoken English made him seem more Sahib than Babu. That lasted until they read his Bengali. Then they had to admit he wrote like a man who'd studied nothing but Sanskrit. Though fluent in French and German as well as Sanskrit and Bengali, Sudin was well aware that Bengalis delighted in a vocabulary and syntax drawn from the more voluble Victorians. In reaction, perhaps, he chose his words with a poet's caution. He took equally fastidious care of his clothes, which included many beautifully tailored suits of English cut, as well as blindingly white dhotis. Gandhi's enthusiasm for Hindun was alien to Sudin's more Sybaritic sensibilities. And the Mahatma's constant resort to a language of Christian repentance, or the way he would lead his followers in a cracked version of Lead, Kindly Light, struck Sudin as unutterably foolish.